We are so excited to be joined by all of you this afternoon. My name is Gretchen Morgan. I'm with the Center for Innovation and Education. And I'm joined this afternoon by a couple of colleagues who, slide, Paul Leather and Donnie Tran, who, if you have enough space on your screen, you can see them too. They're here. So, why are we here? We're here because everybody here is a member of the North Dakota community. You are leaders, you are designers, you are creators, and you decided to come and join this process, or recruited you in your local community to come join this process with the hope of moving our practice from just community engagement to really being able to co-create with communities and families and to deepen the partnership between community and schools better and better support our young people. This is building on some work that has happened already in the state that I'll come back to here in a little bit with the PK-12 Alliance. We've been trying to work together to identify what are the problems most pressing and also to generate solutions or potential solutions together. We have a quote here from Mother Teresa that we think is apt, which is, I can, you cannot, and you can, that I can. Together we can do great things, which really is the aspiration of this work. And I think after the crazy year that we have all had, we are more and more and more aware of what families know about learners and what community partners know about learners and what teachers know about learners, and that the process of learning in a community is complex, and that the more great minds we have on the task, the better it is for everybody. And so we're excited for you all to be here joining this effort. And as you can see in the chat, we'd love for you to introduce yourself. We're asking for a little bit of a long intro, which is we'd love your name, the community that you are zooming in from, you are with. We know we have some folks who are with schools. We know we have some folks who are family members. We know we have some folks with community partners and daycare community facilitators. So we have a wide range of organizations here. And then also, can you tell us about your team status? When this invitation went out, the invitation actually was as for folks to teams to join this process. But we had some people reach out to us and say, I just want to join as an individual because I want to learn more about this. And we thought that was great. So we know some of you are here as part of teams. Some of you, your team is with you. Some of you may be the person who's kind of forming a team and you don't have your team with you yet. All of those versions of how you relate to a team are just fine, but we want to know which one each of you are so that we can help manage your participation through the agenda today as smoothly as possible. So in the chat, I can see people doing that already. Thank you. And we wanted to say that in those of you who filled out the form to kind of sign your, you told us some things already about what you're interested in terms of learning about co-creation between educators and families and communities. And you said things like you wanted to improve family engagement and communication. You wanted to hear from families about what their needs really are instead of trying to guess what their needs are. And that you wanted to be increasing the diversity of representation in leadership groups in your community. And there were many more, and we're sure there's more for those of you who are just joining us today who maybe didn't have a chance to fill out that form in advance. This is a little reminder of how this work got started. So there is a group that was formed right at the beginning of COVID. It's funny because now it's like it was a year ago. It's more than a year ago that that Superintendent Baszler determined that it would be a good idea to build on the different kind of family partnership groups and student leadership groups that she had engaged with at the state level to form a PK-12 Alliance, bringing together students and families and educators and community-based organizations together, really with the initial idea just that we were headed into a complex time and we ought to be able to have a lot of ways to hear from people out around the state. And then as the Alliance came together and got going, we learned about this process that we're going to engage in today of liberatory design. And we did some work empathizing with folks all around the state using the format of an empathy interview, which we're also going to learn about today. And that group, after hearing from people around the state, decided that there were some key issues that they wanted to offer some strategies to sort of respond to, not because they were trying to tell anyone what to do, but because it was a hard time. And it felt like hearing some strategies that would be really good responses to common needs of learners and families and communities would be a good idea. And so they produced this set of family partnership strategy briefs. And you're seeing a little snippet of one right here, which was the point person, which simply stated it'd be great if every family had a single point of contact for school who could help them navigate resources. This was something that came up a lot as people were dealing with distance learning, feeling like if they had to know the 7 different people to call to figure out how to get onto their computer or manage a certain platform, that was really overwhelming. So this was one suggestion, the single point person. But it's here really just as an illustration to say the kinds of things that you can create when you get into partnership with families and learners and community members, because you hear what really is the most basic problem, and then you work together to figure out what's the solution that's going to work best. And work best really means be especially helpful to those and that can really be pulled off with quality. It's hard when kind of vetting these strategies to make sure we're coming up with strategy ideas that we to execute, because everybody's lives are difficult this year. Teachers' lives are pretty full. So we tried to really think about how are these strategies great for those who most need help? How are they also helpful to others? These are also good for educators. And are there any where the way we would do it would be easier for educators than some other way? So that's the work that we're going to engage in here together in this work, is to try to figure out for each of you in your teams, if you're here with a team, how you all can work together to find out what's going on in your communities and figure out how you want to respond, things that you could offer. So today's agenda.
Sorry, just to pause, Gretchen, can you, just to pause a second, can we ask folks to mute if they're not speaking? I think it's, there's some inner sound interference. And Gretchen, if you want to make me co-host, I can also help with.
I will do that. They're your co-hosts. And thanks for the meeting, people. So here's our agenda for today. And I realize today is a long call. We're asking for a lot of your time, probably at the end of what has already been a long day. So thank you for tuning in. But today what we're going to try and do is build a sense of community and common purpose around this kind of co-creation work. To name and describe the different steps of the liberatory design process so that you're familiar with it and so you understand what this first step, which is empathy interviews, kind of what that's a part of, where it's headed, where it's going, and how your community can make use of it. We're going to reflect together on the balance of voices and perspectives within our teams and also together in this big group. And we're going to build skill with empathy interviewing and plan for initial conversations. So those of you who are familiar with the work of the people, you know that we relied heavily on our ability to reach out to people in the community and conduct empathy interviews so that we could hear from them really about their daily experiences and be able to start from there when figuring out where we ought to collaborate and do shared work. And so we're starting that same way in this process today. So that is the agenda for today. Just really quickly, I want to run through a few community agreements. Most of these are probably not unusual, but as this is the beginning of a collaboration, we thought it's good just to put these out in front of us as we begin. The first one is probably the most unusual, which is accept and expect non-closure. I will just be upfront that I find this a frustrating community agreement because I very much like to start work, do something for a period of time, and finish my task. I like to check it off. I have an extensive list of check boxes in my journal every day. I love to get closure. However, this is a complex process and we want to make time to really listen to folks who aren't here on the call with us and those who most ought to be heard because they're struggling the most in your different communities. And so expecting non-closure really means giving time to let other voices find their way in to the work. The second agreement is speak your truth. Sometimes we see things differently. It's okay that we see things differently. If each of us just feels we have permission to describe honestly what we see and feel and hear, we will come up with better ideas. The third one is expect to experience some discomfort. It's frustrating sometimes when you have entered a process like this and you're already kind of sure what the problem is. And then someone else says it's something else, and you do empathy interviews and you hear other things, other people think it's something else. And you have to sort of wonder, like, is my view the commonly held view? Or do I need to be open to someone else's perspective? Or it's possible that as we get into some of these conversations, someone will feel that their voice is less heard than someone else's, and we'll ask about that, and then they'll say it, and then we'll all be uncomfortable because we'll be like, oh no, what did we do to make you not feel welcome? We'd rather stop and be uncomfortable and learn how to be more welcoming than to just have it feel comfortable to most of us. So we will experience probably some discomfort. We ask that you please stay engaged. Believe me, I know how hard it is to want to do that at the end of a long day. Perhaps like me, you've been on Zoom since very early this morning and you're, really getting ready to sit in for these 2 hours. But as we have these series of calls, please stay engaged because the process needs your sustained attention, and just will work better if we all can stay in it together. And then the last one is take an inquiry stance, which another way of saying that really is just be curious. Be curious about what others are experiencing. Be curious about how they feel. Be curious because the more we understand about more people's experiences and perspectives, the better we are going to identify the right problems to focus on, and the better we are going to come up with solutions that are really impactful, which really is the point. None of you said that you wanted to come here to learn about a process in abstract and not have any impact at home. The point is all about making something better at home. So let's stay curious so that we are in this together, and we find the right stuff and we generate great ideas together. So with that, we're going to do a little work to build community and connection, which seems like a weird thing to do over Zoom, I'll just acknowledge, but is an important thing to spend time doing over Zoom. So Donnie is going to take us through this process.
Hi, everybody. This is a really exciting day to get a chance to be with all of you. It's amazing just looking at the chat and seeing how much diversity there is here in terms of opinion and background. And so we need to bring that out and be able to share it with one another. And I'll just flag for my friends who are doing Zoom wizardry in the background in terms of creating breakout groups. This would be a great time to hustle on that, because I'm going to talk through this and we'll do some individual work that should give us time to create those breakouts and those teams. But we're going to do what's called a social map. And it's a way of just quickly cataloging important things about you. And there are 3 circles. So if you haven't already, if you don't have one right in front of you, grab a piece of paper and a pen. I know, it's so crazy. In this Zoom day and age, I'm going to ask you to use a implement that you hold in your fingers, and you're going to write a little bit. And you're going to draw 3 concentric circles, just like you can see here on the screen. And on the very outside, there's what's given. So you'll write things there that you had no choice in terms of your identity, your nationality, your age, your gender, certain physical characteristics, where you fall in your family order, for example. And in the middle ring, you're going to write things that you have chosen for yourself, your occupation, hobbies, where you live, your politics, your family role, even your religion possibly. And in the very, very center, the middle of the bullseye, if you will, you'll write your core attributes. These are your traits, your behaviors, your beliefs, values, things that are really core to who you are. I'm going to show you a quick example. If Gretchen could just quickly click to the next one. And this is me, so I'm going to ask you to click through it. Sorry, Gretchen. So in the given circle, I'm Vietnamese American. My parents were immigrated here from Vietnam before I was born. And I am the baby in my family. I am the youngest of 3, and I was originally born in Richmond, Virginia, but I went to high school in Atlanta, Georgia, where I live now. And in my chosen ring, I actually just came back to Atlanta. So I lived away from Atlanta for many years, a few years in the Bay Area of San Francisco in California, and then many, many years in Boston, Massachusetts. I've always worked in education. It's something I chose for my life because I really feel connected to that work. But I even as things have taken me away from Atlanta, I have chosen to come home and be here and be back in my home community. And in the core, if you can click it one more time, Gretchen. The things that matter to me are, and are core kind of to my personality, are really like thinking deeply about things. I really care about relationships, and I care about constantly learning. Like I love to learn new things. So this is an example of the kind of social map that you're going to make, and you're going to write it on your own piece of paper. And we're going to give you a few minutes to do this, and then we're going to put you into trios, likely in your own team if you came with one, and you'll share it with others, because we need to start creating community and connecting and sharing things about ourselves in order to do this work effectively. So I'm going to start a clock. And does anybody have any questions before we get started about what the task is? Seeing none, hearing none. All right, I will assume that I have given perfectly clear directions, and we'll see about that, won't we? In about 5 minutes. So, and I'll check in to see if you need more time after that. 3 circles, given, chosen, core. Rock and roll.
So when you get into your trio, you can turn on your video and hold your piece of paper in front of the screen and just do a little share. Okay. And if it's easier to just read it out and describe what's in your given, chosen, and core circle, that's also fine. So you're going to have about 10 minutes, which works out to about 3 minutes per person, with a little bit of wiggle room for transition. Try to monitor yourselves. So keep it to about 3 minutes so that everybody has a chance to speak. And with that, we're going to zip off and we'll zip right back.